Welcome to a very special episode of Conversations with Loulou, where we tackle an important topic, which is mental health. So, leadership requires resilience and mental toughness. On a personal level, we've all been put through so much over the past 18 months with the introduction of, dare I call it, a new normal, one where we live with the pandemic. I felt that it's incredibly important to check in on mental health, particularly from a working woman standpoint. So women in the workplace already face many challenges, and the pandemic has just compounded everything. There was a study released by McKinsey last year in 2020. It stated that women's jobs are twice at risk than men's jobs. And COVID-19 has disproportionately increased the time women spend on family responsibilities. And as a result, women have been dropping out of the workforce at a much faster rate than men. But with more people getting vaccinated, we seem to be on the last leg of our battle with COVID. So where do we go from here? A few notes before we kick off the episode. First, I just wanted to say that we had to do an online recording due to scheduling challenges. So for those of you who are watching, unfortunately, we have to do it over Zoom. Secondly, I just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor, Astrolabs. Astrolabs drive digital growth for companies and individuals. They are offering exclusive discounts for our listeners. All you need to do is visit astrolabs.com/Loulou and fill up a short form, and someone from their team will reach out. There are some great discounts on licensing, on online learning, and co-working, and much more. So for now, let's tune in. My guest today is Dr. Saliha Afridi, a clinical psychologist and the founder and managing director of the Lighthouse Arabia, a community wellness center in Dubai. Her work extends to working with children, adolescents, and adults, while her expertise is in parenting as well as burnout in the workplace. So, Dr. Afridi, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, Loulou. Thanks for having me.
Well, I wanted to start with burnout, since this is your expertise, and obviously we've been through a very tumultuous 1.5 years, and we're still in the middle of it. There's been a lot of change. So what have you been noticing recently when people come to see you?
You know, Loulou, a lot of people have asked me, has mental health, the difficulties, have they increased in the last 1.5 years? And I couldn't say that there has been a lot more suffering that people have been enduring. For a lot of people, they like the flexibility. For a lot of people, they like being able to work from home. For a lot of people, they're traveling less. They can do these Zoom meetings or, Teams or whatever. So a lot of this life that was very, very hectic and moving around and not feeling very grounded, many people have actually enjoyed this aspect of the last 1.5 years. The busiest time, I would say, in the life of the Lighthouse was actually the October 2019, which was pre-COVID. And I really told everyone that would listen that there's something happening here, and there's something about, like, I almost could sense it. I even went to government offices. I spoke to people that there's something going on that I just can't put my finger on. And that was actually prior to COVID. So I think it's nice to be able to say that there's a bad guy and COVID made our life so hectic. But come on, guys, let's stop here for a second, rewind. We were pretty hectic back then also. And life was pretty stressful back then also. So I couldn't say that this is a result of COVID, but of course, stress, burnout, loneliness, relationship difficulties, depression, anxiety. These have been going on, I would say, and I've seen this kind of rise since 2015. So this was not COVID, but it is definitely happening. And I think the audience that is listening here, the entrepreneurs, there was opportunities that have shown up for a lot of people, but with opportunity comes a lot of struggle too. So it's all a package deal, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, that it's not something that's recent, but it has been going on for quite some time.
And I agree. However, there's a point to be made on working women, because, study after study showed that working women had to take a lot of the brunt of, taking care of the family, especially during COVID. And already I feel that we're at a disadvantage in general in the workplace. There's a report by McKinsey that was released last year that says that women are, twice as much vulnerable in terms of their jobs. And COVID just, made it even worse. So have you seen this when you talk to your clients? Are women complaining from this?
Well, in that same report, you might have seen that women, even though they are suffering, are less likely to reach out because they just don't even have the time to go get help. So we actually are not seeing those working women, because when do I make the time to actually work on the things that I need to work on in order to get some footing? So it's a very destabilizing time for working women. I know my children were in home schooling or schooling from home. I have 4 children, 3 of them teenagers, one of them a 6-year-old. And it was a really difficult time to manage all of that. And they didn't go to school last year. They were homeschooling for a whole year and a half, since March to this September. And so I definitely relate to the struggle of that. But I can tell you that those are not the women necessarily that are coming in for help, because as the research shows, they actually don't have time or energy that it requires to actually do this kind of work. They're just managing at this time, which is sad.
It is. Well, it is a lot of pressure, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I felt it as well. I'm a mother of 2, and also been working from home and working with the kids. So it's been quite challenging.
it is. And women really have struggled a lot. And I think this is where a lot of the workplaces, including McKinsey and the professional services firms, are trying to figure out what is going to be the new way of working. Because if this is going to be the new reality, we need to update all of our operating systems as to how women work, how they will get promoted, how they will actually move through the different tracks that they have, because the old way is not going to work in this new world.
Do you have any? I'm sure you share a lot of tips on your social media. I'm an avid follower of yours on Instagram. Are there any words that you can say for women, particularly, and working women, when it comes to dealing with anxiety, stress, or burnout?
Oof.
There's a lot to be said.
There's a lot to be said. So I would like to say that I've been one of those women. So I've burnt out like proper adrenal fatigue twice in my life through work. And I wouldn't say that it was during COVID or anything, but it was prior to COVID, way long before, when I was starting the Lighthouse, and that's what was going on. And I would say to women that instead of thinking that you need to actually go see a therapist at that time, if you are struggling, what I would say, cut out everything in your life that is taxing you in any way, or limit it in some way, and focus all of your energy on your physical body. Because if your physical body is strong and there's a discipline that you have put into place, then it will carry you through the difficult periods. But there are women that are like, oh, I want to go out every night, but I still want to be able to see my kids, but I still want to be able to work, and then I still want to be able to work out. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. You really have to trim down your life to the most essential people and the most essential activities. And the essential people are going to be those 2-3 friends that you are going to be deeply investing in. If you're like a social butterfly and you want to be everywhere, then you are giving your energy to all of that, because your energy is finite. And you have to think about your energy as being finite. So if I give my energy to this person or to this event or to this project, then I cannot give it to this. I've heard women say, well, I want to do it all. I want to be it all.
Yeah.
It comes at a price, and the price usually is your physical and mental health. So which you can do it all, but not at the scale necessarily that you are thinking. It literally is taking this person and taking this event and planning ahead and focusing on your physical health and spending time with your children and prioritizing those particular things. So you can manage it all. So for me, I think, I know I'm a psychologist and I should be talking about mental and psyche and these types of emotions, but I really feel that if we are able to discipline ourselves, we are going to be able to do it. And I know this is what I needed to do. So it was like, what is non-negotiable? And my sleep became a non-negotiable. Of course, there are times in the weekend or maybe on a Thursday that I say, okay, I'm going to be staying out late that night. But it's during the week. This is a non-negotiable. Working out is a non-negotiable. Eating right is a non-negotiable. If I'm going to be in the big leagues, I have to act like I'm in the big leagues and I have to practice as if I'm in the big leagues. We cannot be in the big leagues and still do, social media for 5 hours a day and wonder why we're feeling so stressed. So it is a very, very disciplined life. If you want to be a working mother, woman, I think even a working father, working man, anybody, it's a discipline, especially the more when you get into the space of being an entrepreneur, when you get into the space of being in a professional services firm, you really have got to pull out like the Olympic mindset. The Olympic athlete doesn't feel like working out. He's got to work out like it's like his life depends on it. And that's kind of how we need to be thinking about ourselves. These very basic things are the most fundamental non-negotiables that we cannot compromise, because then the house comes tumbling down.
Yeah. It's also a question of managing your own expectations as well, right? What you can achieve versus how much you can do. I think that's also very important because, as you said, we want to be everything and we struggle. So I'm curious to know your particular journey with entrepreneurship. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening to this show, and you're a clinical psychologist. You could have easily had your own clinic and stayed there, but you decided that you wanted to build a center and build a big business around it. So can you perhaps take me through some of the motivations that led you to start this business?
I am just a clinical psychologist trying to do this thing. I actually never had a vision that this would be what it is today, to be honest with you. And I think that is something that is okay to say as an entrepreneur, is that I did want to build a business where I was going to have a small team of people that had similar values to me, that were going to educate and work on preventative care within this country. This is what I had in mind. And the business actually started because we were looking to provide a free service in a way that was sustainable. So at the heart of who we are is a social enterprise. We're not a business, actually. We actually operate very much with a mission at the heart. And that mission is not to make money. That mission is, how do we do good in this world by providing accessible mental health support, which is through support groups, or providing education, which is through all the free work that we do, talks and lectures, and then the low-cost services that we provide, like mental health first aid or the workshops that we do. So how do we do that in a way that is sustainable? And how do we make sure we get the best in the world to come to the UAE to deliver that? That is only the model that we have. And so for me, this was how I was going to do it. I was going to work in my private practice and make that money last me, and pay the rent and do these things. So it actually was feeding into it. So that's kind of how the business sort of grew. And as I did this, and I did this more, there were other light workers, as you could say, that wanted to be aligned in this mission with me. And so every single person that works at the lighthouse, for as long as they are at the lighthouse, they will be providing low cost and free services within the forms of groups or workshops, etc., to this community, period. Now, whenever that shifts inside of you, you can leave. But while you're here, this is what we do. So that's the model. And I actually didn't think it was going to become what it is, but it is now one of the largest centers in the region. And we are very trusted by the community because we have that intention super clear. There were many times, Loulou, that I actually was okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so tired. I was exhausted. I was going through my difficult periods in my life, but it was the why that kept me there. And so Nietzsche actually says that one who has a why can endure anyhow. And that's really very important element that sort of kept my guiding light, and my compass was I had a very strong why. My why was super clear. I started this business because the places I worked at before, my soul did not align with those places, because I felt we needed to do work that was not being paid for, because we needed to get the word out. And mental health 13 years ago was nothing at that point. And that's what
still is quite a challenge.
Yeah. And so we've been around now for 10 years. And I didn't want that to be the barrier between people getting the support they needed. And so we started with a support group with like 2 people, but let's just going and keep going. And now we have 22 support groups that are running for people across the region that dial into the Zoom calls now. Before they were in person, but now everyone can access it, and they're free of charge, and they're led by world-class experts. So for me, this is the business, but it's not a business, to be honest with you, because it is my life's mission. It is my calling. And I'm super clear about it, that this is my legacy. Business just narrows it down to something very small in the grand scheme of things.
So I love this, because I think we all struggle, at least myself, with kind of identifying what we want to be and even who we are to a certain extent. I actually got a book recently called The Element by Sir Ken Robinson. And, it's all about like trying to identify your passion and trying to figure out what you want to do. And it's interesting because I'm 40, and you would think that like you have it all figured out. But so how did you know? I mean, is there a process that you go through to figure out that, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to do it for profit. I want to do impact. I want to help as many people as possible. I mean, so 11 years ago, so you were younger, right? So how did you get to that realization?
So my spirit has always been very loud. It's just been very loud. It's a very rebellious spirit. It's gotten me in a lot of trouble, and it's caused a lot of havoc within my mom's psyche, probably. But if my heart is not engaged, I'm not paying attention. And it will cause all kinds of havoc in my life to make sure that I stop doing it. It will make me miserable. And I didn't know that as I look back, but that spirit was there in those classes where I was, daydreaming out the window. That spirit was there when I caused a lot of other changes in my life. That spirit was there when I didn't know what I was going to do in my undergrad. And I took all sorts of courses, but the only place I came alive was in anthropology. I didn't do psychology in my undergrad. I found it to be the most boring subject. And I was like, what is this nonsense that these guys are talking about? But because it was all about psychopathology and this one and that psychiatrist and that theory and whatever. So tell me stories, tell me about people. This was anthropology. So I got my undergraduate degree in anthropology, had no idea what I was going to do with it. But there I was getting my degree in anthropology. So it's always sort of led me. And I remember sitting in my marketing, because I had a marketing job right out of undergraduate. Okay. And I was a very promising, star within the company. They, trained me. They sent me all over the place to get trained because they could see that I would actually be quite a good person within this marketing firm, good employee. And I remember literally one day sitting there, and I had my office, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. My whole life flashed in front of my eyes, not as an image, but in my body. And I was like, I have to sell things to people they don't need for the rest of my life. I can't do this. And I walked over to my boss's office and I said, listen, His name was John. I said, John, I'm giving my resignation. And he was like, what are you talking about? It was like a Tuesday morning or something. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm leaving. And so I packed my car and I went down to Texas from Chicago, and I was going to join dental school. And then I was sitting in the pre-dental program where you have to take courses in order to sort of move into the dental school. And I was sitting there and I thought, no, this isn't it either, because I thought maybe I should be a dentist. And then my sister said, why don't you do psychology? And so my older sister I was like, okay, that's a good idea. And so I think for me, this idea that I have to know my purpose before I start my journey has never been the case.
Okay.
I've always been very, very curious. And I've said, okay, I'll try this. I mean, I had my real estate license, kinesiology. I mean, I had so many certificates. I'm masseuse, like I took shiatsu massage and like the benefits of that. So I did so many different things that sort of intrigued me. Not a single one went to waste, I would say. And eventually I landed in psychology. And I tell everyone that the day I stop feeling good about this is the day I stop. And everybody told me, be on Instagram. No, I ain't doing it. 8 years went by. Instagram was on. 2 years ago, I was like, I think I should be on Instagram. So my spirit has always led me. And I have trusted that spirit. Actually, I take that back. I never trusted that spirit. It always got me in trouble, but I now trust that spirit. And the spirit has always just sort of, it's a very demanding spirit that I have. It's a very rebellious spirit. It will make me just disengage and move into a state of depression. And I don't like being depressed. I've been depressed before. And so when I'm depressed, I really say, okay, what is it that I need to change in my life? And then once I change that thing that was holding me down, then the depression lifts also. So that's kind of my journey. And I don't know where it's going to take me next. Let's see where we go.
So is that entrepreneurial?
I don't know what that is. I don't know. But the spirit is very creative. And so if the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who's creative, who solves problems and creates products and services to solve those problems. Yeah.
In a commercially viable way.
In a commercially viable way. Yeah. In a sustainable way.
But what is, you touched on so many things. First, like just a small comment on you doing many things in your life. I think that's so like anti our culture, like the Arab culture, because I feel like in the Arab culture, if you're doing too many things, you're like this lost and confused person. And every day you're onto something. And I think that's very much, it's not encouraged at all. But I just wanted to make that comment. It's interesting that you say that, because typically here I feel families encourage you to sort of, stick to a route and, become a doctor or become an engineer or become a business person. And it's kind of like a source of pride.
For sure. My family was very much the same, but they sort of gave up on me. I think my dad was like, the girl is going to keep doing what she's doing, because that's just who I was. I was just a very, in a sense, very rebellious. Like my father had to pay for my college education from University of Michigan out of state. And it was in cultural anthropology. Like, what is that?
Yes.
What do you do with that? I don't know, Dad, but it seems really interesting. And so I definitely come from the same background. I'm from Pakistan. Like they don't mess around. And when I just told people I was going to be a psychologist, please don't do it.
Yes.
You are wasting your talent. You could do so much. You could study business. You could do this. This is what I want. I want to do psychology for now. Maybe I go into business next, but I didn't know. What I didn't know. But if you tried to convince me, that's where my rebellious nature just wouldn't listen.
Okay.
That's the
So when you say spirit, because you said the word spirit like a few times, so can you visualize it for me a little bit? Like, what are we? Is it meditating? Is it what is spirit to you?
Well, it's that part in us that has been with us our whole life. Our bodies have changed, our personalities have changed, our friends have changed, our lives have changed, but there's always a witness inside, right? And if I tell you to close your eyes, I want you to close your eyes.
Are you going to do this to me now? Okay, I'm going to close my eyes. Okay.
You close your eyes, and I want everyone to close their eyes, whoever's listening. And I want you to imagine a red ball rolling down the stairs. Now I want you to imagine a rose bush by a gate.
Okay.
Now I want you to imagine a full moon shining on the sea. Now you can open your eyes. Now that you are the witness, you are not the red ball, you are not the rose bush. There is something in you that is witnessing these thoughts.
Yes.
One thought came, then you let that one go. Another thought came and you let that one go. That witness is the spirit. You have a witness inside of you, and we just need to tap into that part. As old as time, Egyptians called it the Ba, the Greeks called it the diamond, the Romans called it the genius. This is an inner wisdom, an inner intelligence, and you know it. If I tell you, how did you know that? Oh, something just told me that was the right thing to do. That is the spirit. And some people just listen when the spirit is screaming, but you can actually really tune into that. And that's what people refer to as an intuition. Intuition is there's a force inside of you, a spirit inside of you that you can tap into that knows the way, that knows more than what your conscious mind knows. That spirit in me is just very loud. I don't have to tap into it. It just shakes me up and rocks my world. And then I just have to listen. But that's the spirit that and there are some people, when you say it's just a very spirited person, that's what I'm talking about.
Can you access it as well through meditation if you don't hear it as loudly? Because I've been reading up a lot on that, and I have never meditated before, but I'm seriously considering it.
You cannot do anything without stillness. You want to tap into a greater source of creativity, you've got to still yourself. Whatever got you this far ain't going to get you further. If there is a calling, something is telling you, you need to sit still. Something inside of you is compelling you. Why? You didn't think to meditate 2 years ago or 5 years ago, but something is telling you at 40, which is the age the prophets got prophethood. 40, it's telling you, you've got to do something different for the next stage of wherever you're headed. You listen to that. That's the spirit.
Well, I'm trying, and I'm speaking to you as a first step of many, hopefully. So I'm trying to think. So I'm also a mother. You mentioned that you're a mother. There's a lot of working women out there, and should there be a trade-off between like motherhood and work, or can you do it all? Going back to the first point that you mentioned before, is that you can't really do it all. There has to be priorities. So for people that maybe work a lot and feel guilty about it, or get excited, for example, like for me, my work is very exciting. My kids are very exciting, but in a completely different way. But there's always this sort of like guilt feeling that, maybe I should be with them more or so on. So is it a trade-off?
It depends on how you define motherhood. And if you define motherhood where you go grocery shopping and you buy organic foods and you have to hand cook those foods, and then you have to feed those foods to your children, and that you need to pick them up from school and you need to drop them off at home, and you need to, okay, maybe not. Okay. If that's what motherhood means to you, then working is going to be a little bit harder for you. But if you have really, really synthesized this idea of what motherhood means to you to moments where you fully need to be present. And you know what? I might be ordering food from Deliveroo tonight because I ain't cooking, because I'd rather spend that time with my kids. Or, you know what? I'm going to put my work aside because my son needs me right now, and I'm going to really prioritize him. If you can't manage that relationship between just being good enough at work and giving full focus to your kids, and then being good enough as a mother and giving full focus to your work, because those times will be required of you, especially as an entrepreneur. You will need to give 80% of your attention, but that 20% that you give to your kids, you have got to make that work. So those early morning hours when they're getting ready for school, and then you see them off onto the bus, and maybe you say, I'm going to definitely be there. I'm going to put my phone aside. I'm going to make sure I'm present. And when they come home, you're there to greet them, or you spend time with them between the hours of 5 and 8:30. And then you say you need to go off and read your book, and then you go off to your work. So there are going to be things that you're just going to chunk up, and you drop the rest of your life in those hours. Like friends could call, a messenger could show up and you say, that this is now time for my kids. So you really have to be very protective of those moments. And then do everything outside of those moments. So it is possible. But I know that I've called out of work because my daughter was having a crisis when she was just entering her teenage years. And I had to call out of work. I had to cancel my day because I needed to be there for her. Yes. So you will have to make those kinds of choices in times. And there are days when my kids didn't see me for 2-3 days because I was flying for a course. And that's going to also happen. So if motherhood for you is omnipresent, always cooking, always being there, okay, then it's going to be a little bit harder for you. But if you can reconcile some of that, then it is doable.
I have 2 more questions for you before I let you go, because I know I'm conscious of your time. So the first one is when I mentioned entrepreneurship to you, you spoke a little bit, you said that we have to talk about power and creativity. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what did you mean exactly?
Well, for me, and I'm a psychologist, so people would think that this work should come naturally, but I can tell you there are many psychologists that have not done their own work. But for me, I've always been very curious and always just sort of been wandering about in the world trying to figure out what I need to be doing. And when I did hit 40, actually it happened a little bit before. When I was about 38, this calling was something different. And at 38, for me, the shifting, so at 33, there was a shifting. And then at 38, there was a shifting. And I really felt I needed to go in and do my work. And that healing needed to happen. My complexes needed to be more not in control. My reactivity, you asking me for something, me giving it to you, this kind of way of living was no longer working for me, because I felt like I was being very reactive to everything, saying yes to everything, saying, yes, I'll show up to everything. No, that's not going to work. As my kids got older and my business got where it is, I needed to have a little bit more strategy, but I needed more power. And that power is our unlocked potential, which is locked up in our wound. So think about a wound as a knot and a ball of energy. Inside, there's a ball. And if you unpack that, you have access to that power now. So the healing releases all of these pockets inside of you that are creative energy. It is our life force. That life force is a creative energy, and it sits down here in these lower 3 chakras. And if we don't have access to that because we don't feel good enough, and we don't feel we're thin enough, and we don't feel we belong anywhere, okay, some of these issues sit down here. And unless we resolve that, we will not have access to this creative power. And like I said, whatever has worked is actually going to get in the way of the next half. You need a different operating system for the next part of your journey. And that does mean that you've got to do some healing inside of yourself in order to access that unlocked potential, that power.
And for healing, do you mean you have to go and do psychotherapy, or is it more, doing things like trying to meditate or reading more about it or forgive people? You were talking about forgiveness on your Instagram. So it's all part of it, right?
Everything. It's everything. I have companions on my journey, which is the healing journey. I have therapists that I work with, brain spotting that I've done, yoga instructors, osteopaths, stretching, flexologists, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I can go on and on as to the people that have helped me be who I am and heal parts of me that needed, but the body, the soul, the mind, our psyche, all of that needs to be healed. So this is not just, oh, I meditate and now I'm good. No,
it should be better.
There needs to be it depends on how much power you want access to. How much do you need? And I want all of it. I want all of my power back. If I'm holding a grudge against someone, they have my power. If I'm reacting to you, you have my power. I want my power. I need this power as I raise these kids and I grow this mission. I need that power. So I've got to take it away from people that shouldn't be having it. But these operating systems that we've sort of been raised with, these operating systems are the ones that drain our energy. They were good for us for a certain while. They helped us adapt in this world, but that's not our power.
I love this. That's very well said. So final words, maybe for people that are, in business, that are perhaps starting up or getting stuck. Maybe they are getting rejections. Their self-worth is, being thrown in the air. Confidence. Do you have any tips for us?
I think if you're in this world and you're doing this and you're going to face a lot of struggles, it's very important that you have a relationship with yourself. The home needs to be inside of you. The relationship that is primary needs to be with you. What do you think of when you look at your body? What do you think of when you look at your hair and your wrinkles? What do you think when someone criticizes you? Who has the power? Who has the primary relationship? If it's still the other person, then this journey is going to be a whole lot more difficult for you. So you've got to develop a relationship with yourself, and you've got to do the work of awareness and healing to remember who you are. And this is my quote that I will tell my kids and myself and everybody who will listen. You've got to remember who you are. You are far bigger than these complexes that you're tied up in and this reactivity. You are a soul that is far more powerful than this, who has gifts to bring to this world. But we get caught up in like the drama of things and the superficial, push and pull of things. And that's not who you are. You're bigger than that. And so just remember who you are. But if you forgot, then do the work and go back home. And the way you go back home is stillness and solitude and silence. Start with that and heal the body. Heal the body and do these three things that I just said: stillness, silence, and solitude. This noisy world that we live in is distracting us, not from our work, from ourselves and our own truth. And when you know that truth, the confidence will come. Then you can tell me, hey, Dr. Saliha, I don't really like the stuff that you do. Okay, that's you that doesn't like it. But I know why I did it. And maybe there are other people who do resonate with it. I'll take your feedback on. Thank you for your feedback. But this is my calling. I'm going to operate from the inside out, not the outside in. So life is an inside job. Healing is an inside job. Happiness is an inside job. Creativity is an inside job. Clean up the inside.
Well, that's great. And I just want to let the audience know that they can follow you on Instagram, right? Yes. And your handle it's Dr. Saliha Afridi, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Where you post regular videos, very inspiring, very practical as well. You give a lot of examples when you are talking about a topic. I love listening to your work. Big fan of yours. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for taking the time. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for all the tips that you've given us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining this very special episode of Conversations with Loulou with Dr. Saliha Afridi. I would have loved to have this conversation in person, but Dr. Afridi's hectic schedule prevented us from doing so. So I'm very happy to have had her online. And as usual, if you would like to reach out to me for guest recommendations, for feedback, for sponsorships, for speaking opportunity, or any other opportunities, you can reach out to me on conversationswithloulou.com. You can also reach out to me on social media, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at the handle Loulou Khazen. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Astrolabs. So Astrolabs is a capacity building company. They provide a lot of services for entrepreneurs, from company licensing in Saudi Arabia and in the UAE to co-working spaces and training. And they also work with corporates and large enterprises on providing online learning opportunities and in-person opportunities as well in the digital realm and in the digital space. There's a lot of discounts, exclusive discounts for Conversations with Loulou listeners. All you need to do is visit astrolabs.com/Loulou, and you can fill out a form and someone from their team would reach out to you. There's a lot of discounts on all of their products, so I definitely recommend you check them out. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in to this online session of Conversations with Loulou. See you again soon.